Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Springettsbury Township Board of Supervisors work session for the purpose of review of zoning and subdivision and land development ordinance amendments. So, Mark, any words before we turn it over to Marion?
Second meeting of possibly three meetings, and I think Marion's going to go over briefly some changes she made from the first meeting's recommendations, but the lion's share of this evening's going to be on probably the big topic of signs. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Marion.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yes, the lion's share of this evening will be on signs. So we'll go to the agenda slide. And like we said, some updates on April. Talking about, I think most of tonight we'll probably end up talking about the idea of electronic message signs and whether or not we want to regulate those any differently than we do now. Talk a bit about temporary signs and then sign definition changes. Let's see, I could probably do that myself now. I think everybody who was here tonight was here at the last meeting, so I won't go through the summary of the process to date. So we're in our second workshop, and our focus is going to be on the sign ordinance. Okay, so updates from when we met in April. So we talked about some updates to temporary uses and structures, and the primary change that we talked about there was adding provisions to address, further address, because the language already does say that you need to meet parking requirements, but further address parking and also address access and egress such that you're not impeding the flow of traffic on the local roadways. So we added some language there. In further discussion with Randall, with staff, we realized that there was an addition to the ordinance since 2004, so in early 2008, there was an addition to the ordinance that was talking about special sales events. And I'm thinking with the changes that we've made to the just temporary uses and structures, we can probably delete this section J. We've loosened things up a little bit, allowing things to be associated with the property owner and not having to be property and business owners. I don't have a clear idea of how this 325-131J was put in there, but I think it somewhat conflicts with the rest of what's in temporary uses and structures. And I think with our changes to provide a little bit more flexibility, we'll be regulating things hopefully more like we would like to be regulating them. And it's really hard to explain what's going on in this other than just showing you what the language is, and I don't know how deep into the weeds we want to get in that. But I did. So the text that's underlined here is the new text we added to Section A of this provision. So saying that things need to be associated with events, focusing on special sales, promotions, food, drinks, entertainments, or events held or permitted by the occupant of the property only. Unless contracted through an occupant of the property, sales by parties, companies, or agents of organizations unrelated to the normal activity on the site are strictly prohibited. Sales of unrelated merchandise such as foodstuffs and or craft or rummage items are not permitted. So that seemed to be where we wanted to go. Section J basically says, notwithstanding everything else we said earlier in this ordinance, special sales, promotions by parties, companies, or agents of organizations who are not occupants of the property and whose sales may not be related to the normal activity shall be permitted if all of this other stuff is met. And from what we've talked about, I am not sure that is exactly what we were going for in terms of how we wanted to regulate temporary sales and other things. But obviously that's not my decision. It's a township decision. So, and I apologize for throwing all of this text at you. I just didn't know another way of describing it.
Go back to the other.
Yeah.
Seems to me there was another section that said that if it was an event that was, and I'm just phrasing from my memory,
Right.
largely in agreement with the products that the business would already sell, they could have like a tent sale.
Right.
Or other things in the, in their parking area or whatever, and I don't remember a size limit on it, but we used that to get around the Christmas tree thing at Ollie's, for instance, because they sold fake trees and Christmas ornaments and lights and decorations and things like that inside, and for them to sponsor the food bank Christmas tree sale seemed to be an accessory use to what they were already doing.
Right.
And if they signed the permit, it was an accepted use. And that isn't how J reads in my mind. I don't know
No.
if I'm mixing things up or if there's another section in there that we want to address also that talks about that specifically, because it seems like we're trying to cover that in this one section.
Right.
Am I making this up in my head? Didn't we use that? John Luciani found that, and we used that at Ollie's for the food bank Christmas tree sale. And to stop it at other places. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a closer look, and
Yeah,
if it's
so-
not in there, we'll make sure that it is.
Because this seems like it's addressing it, although the wording is a little vague in my mind. Erection and use of a temporary, well, this is for erection of a structure or sales area not designated as such on an approved land development plan shall be in connection with events focusing on special sales, promotions, food and drinks, entertainment, or events held or permitted by the occupant of the property only. So permitted by the occupant of the property would cover that. It would be events focused on a special sales promotion, which would be the Christmas trees for an accessory use. Do you think this, I'm asking, and
I'm kind
gentlemen, weigh in.
of uncomfortable with permitted, because you're reading it as permitted by the township. If you read it as permitted by the
Permitted by the
occupant.
occupant of the
So he could
property
put-
only.
Yeah, if he permitted it, he could do anything that he wanted.
Right, if the occupant did.
Have to tighten up the
Yeah.
language a little to read with an approved township permit or something
Right.
to that effect.
And there is other language in there about the permit and the process and all of that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is part of the issue that we've had with UTers, especially after we went to into the Court of Common Pleas with the temporary injunction process. That was one of the things that Mr. Koenig's attorney stated, that they can have all of the vendors that they currently have been occurring as part of their events, even though it didn't receive a permit. We were hanging our hat on Section A and then going down to J, which in essence allowed them to bring all these vendors on, as long as the property owner was allowing it, which he was. He was contracting with those folks to come to his site while he was selling all his wares, and they were bringing in all kinds of things that had nothing to do with a nursery or a greenhouse.
So I think we need to find that other section because I think that wording in my mind was more appropriate for what we're trying to do.
Trying to tighten up the language, this looks a little looser. to
Yeah,
me.
this looks too loose. I don't think Jay said that they could sell food.
It did not, but they could have vendors, and this past two events that they did, again with no permit, he did not have food trucks. However, vendors inside the greenhouses were selling food.
But that's not their permitted use.
That is correct.
Hey, Mark, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry, Don, I'll hold this next to my face. All I was saying is that in years past, with the sale of Christmas trees by the food bank, there was another section that talked about things like that could only happen if it was an accessory type use to what the business already did, and it had to be permitted by the business or approved by the business for use in their parking lot. With the food bank, for instance, the food bank tree sales, Ollie's already sold Christmas trees and all of the accessories for Christmas in their store.
Right.
Having a Christmas tree sale in the parking lot was not considered a use that did not match what the store already did. But they could not put a food stand up in the parking lot and sell food just because they wanted to and agreed to have them in the parking lot.
Right, and I'm not seeing that specific language under the current, I just have up the.
I wish John was here tonight. He found that for us to
I'll double check with
figure
John.
all this out, yeah.
I'll double check with John on that and figure out where it is. And if it's not in this section, I'm gonna make sure that it's in this section because this is where we're all
Yeah.
looking for it.
And I agree with Bob that this language needs to be tightened up. I don't want somebody just deciding that they're gonna sell something else in the parking lot
Right.
and just, they agree to it, so it's okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll take another crack at this.
Don, any other comments? Is that your recollection of what we did?
I really don't remember, other than that it worked.
Right.
Yeah, the only suggestion, I kind of read this like 4 times before I figured out what
Yeah.
it was trying to say. It might make sense to make some of these things list,
Right, I agree.
rather than
It's,
string, because that's what I had to do in my head to make it work.
Right.
yeah, I usually start taking sections out between commas and try to see what the first and last part of the sentence say, and then try to fill things in to see what it really means. And
Just the conditions with bullet points.
yeah,
Like
conditions
township
with
code.
bullet points might be a lot simpler to understand.
Yeah, more direct.
If we're debating it here, it's not going to go well in court.
Yeah. I agree. Okay.
But I do like the very last sentence, and I think that's the intent of what we're trying to say. Sales of unrelated merchandise. But I don't want to, such as foodstuffs and or craft or rummage items seems to limit the list. And I
Right.
know it says such as, but
Let's just say
It's-
unrelated merchandise.
yeah. Or we've got to go really deep and start listing everything that we don't want, and that might be a little bit egregious.
Yeah, let's not do that. Okay.
While we're here, I'll make a comment. Ironically, a few days after our last meeting, a local business owner, car dealership owner, contacted me because he wasn't allowed to use food trucks. They were having a special event at the car dealership. And I could tell he wasn't too thrilled with he wasn't allowed to have like that customer appreciation type thing using a food truck. And it was ironic. 'cause
So
we-
that's that's outdoor sales. If he wants to do customer appreciation and have food trucks there and let his customers have free food, I don't know that we could stop him.
The part of it that wasn't free is it was to benefit a local nonprofit.
Oh.
So it was kind of trying to roll a couple things into one event, and he was disappointed that he wasn't able to do it, but currently not able to do it. That's all. I just wanted, it was ironic because it was just a few days after
Well-
we talked about it.
I've often wondered why we limit food trucks so much.
We do have proposals to loosen how food trucks are regulated. And that is something that we did some more research on since the last meeting.
Yeah, we did talk about that if a food truck is appropriately licensed,
Yeah.
maybe that would be a different treatment of this.
Except if somebody wanted to hold a giant event, they could pull in 20 food trucks and a beer truck, and so that's something we need to think about as well.
If I may, again, that was part of the issue with the Uters events that he was holding. He did have, I don't know if he had 20, but I think he had at least anywhere from 8 to 10 food trucks at the previous events in 2025. Again, this year we told him we cannot have those, and he did not have food trucks provided for those too.
I guess in my mind, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. I mean, with Hooters, for instance, when the problems were occurring, lack of traffic planning, lack of space for the event, not a permitted use, food trucks where food trucks aren't allowed. I mean, it wasn't just one thing. And every
Absolutely
time
not.
you try to go in and say, well, we don't allow this. Well, okay, we won't do that anymore, but we're going to do all these things, or we're going to change it and do something else. They were trying to fit 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag.
Absolutely.
And it was disrupting the neighborhood. And that alone is the reason that all of the neighbors were up in arms and wanted something done about it. I don't think it was, I mean, if there had been a food truck there and there was no traffic problem, nobody would have said anything. I think it was the grouping of all of those things that were being done and the flagrant disregard for neighbors and just the whole situation together as a whole
Absolutely.
became untenable.
The scale of those events were not appropriate for that site.
So, how do you do that in a paragraph, Marion?
We don't. So, that could get back to a definition of temporary events and regulating those we'll need to put, I
Yeah,
think we need to put some more thought into this.
And this might, trying to figure this issue out might outlive the time that we have set for what we're trying to accomplish
I think we
Yeah.
need to-
this go-around.
I was going to say,
So,
Maybe-
yeah, if you could research that further, but I don't want to hold this process up for that.
check with John Luciani.
Yeah, check with John.
Yep.
See what that other language looks like, and maybe give some thought to that. But if we don't get that done by the time we need to take some actions on the things that do make sense, we're going to move forward.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And it's something we've been wrestling with for a long time, and it's hard to be loose on one side if somebody is being egregious on the other, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's jump, still on temporary. Based on the discussion, last month we talked about permitting up to one a year for 7 days. And then we talked about, well, what if somebody, wanted to do something more frequently? So we updated it to up to 4 events a year. So like if somebody wanted to have a couple of block parties or something like that in a year, they could, and set the maximum to 8 days from 7, because it's divisible by 2, was the only reason for that. And so this is for temporary events. In this case, are different than the temporary uses in that these are something that happens at a place where commercial activity usually doesn't take place. So it's in a residential neighborhood. It's in a something that a church is doing, or it's a carnival, or something like that. So those are that's the change we made there.
Just back to that for a second.
Yeah, I guess my question is, are we trying to encourage more temporary events or discourage more temporary events?
I think one of the big ones that comes to mind is the St. Joe's Carnival.
Exactly, but it's once a year.
It's once a year for a week.
Yeah,
There are some residents in the area that don't like it, but it's kind of self-contained on the property.
yep,
Parking is handled on the property. They have appropriate control of how that all occurs. They have special flow of traffic during that event to take into account the volume of people there. I see that as totally different than a business that is throwing a big party to make money. Disrupting the neighborhood around it. I don't know. Some people might say it's not different.
Well, and that's why we regulated it differently in that it needs to be at a property that doesn't normally have a commercial event. And the carnival happens right now, and we don't really have provisions in the ordinance for it. So that was the genesis behind this. But the more I think about it as we talk, I do want to talk to John and look at ways we can tighten up the activity we'd like to see. But I'm also wondering if we don't want to define something about events and having that be, you could have a great event space in a commercial district that might attract a wedding with 200 people. You probably don't want an event space in your rural residential district that's going to attract 200 people. That kind of thing. So let's look at some options in terms of regulating what that really is as what's creating a problem and what it really is as a use, rather than how we've been trying to regulate it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's an easy solution for these, so I don't think we should just try to get it done quickly.
Okay. Okay. I'm good. I'm good with that approach.
The other thing we talked about before was that there are a couple of block parties that happen in neighborhoods, and I don't think we want to prohibit those.
Right, and that's part of why we changed this to allow more frequent, rather than, we want to, if the
Right.
community wants to see this carnival happen, let's make sure it's a permitted use, but we also want to support community.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about a burn ordinance at the last meeting, and then we decided we didn't want to do it, and then we decided that maybe we do. So we started to put together some language that would prohibit most burning in the township, but would allow it for food, cooking food outdoors, recreational, ceremonial uses, firefighting instruction, and prevention or abatement of a fire hazard. Recreational burn materials would be limited to seasoned firewood or charcoal. We used the model ordinance from Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. It actually sets some fairly hefty criminal and civil penalties for violations, saying that municipalities could do less. We've since had an opportunity to review one of your neighbors' ordinances, which think is probably a little bit more on the scale of what we're looking at here. Same basic idea of these are the kinds of things that you would permit. But I think a simpler way of regulating them. So I think we want to take a look at that and make adjustments there. So, and a couple of things that the township manager and I discussed were, the model ordinance says, you have to have a screen over any kind of an open fire, and do we really need to do that? A lot of commercial burners don't have that, like the solo stoves or the chimeneas and stuff. They don't necessarily have screens, and they're still safe. So maybe we delete that from what we have in our current proposed ordinance language. And then the other idea is, like, if you are at a really big site and you can be more than 100 feet from a building, does it have to be contained, or could you have an actual open fire? And that's a question, not a recommendation one way or the other.
Yeah, again, I don't want to be too tough on people that they can't enjoy a fire pit in their backyard,
Yeah.
but within reason.
Right.
What's the definition of reasonable?
Right. Yeah, I think the newer model we have is going to be a little bit closer to what we're probably looking for.
Okay. Anybody?
My only concern is if open burning is permitted within 100 feet from a structure, what's to prevent people from starting to burn their trash in a burn barrel again?
Well, that's the other thing, is that any kind of prohibiting the burning of trash, and that you really, no matter what you're doing, it has to be either charcoal or seasoned wood.
That's fine.
It can't be anything else.
That covers it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a conflict between the requirement for charcoal and seasoned wood and cooking food that might happen a different way?
What would you burn besides charcoal or wood? And we're trying to avoid people from
Propane.
burning painted wood and things like that.
Gas grills?
Yeah, gas grills.
Yeah.
But is that really burning? I mean, I know that you're oxidizing
Well,
fuel.
If I'm cooking, it's burning.
All right, fair enough.
Maybe we'll add natural gas, just to make it clear.
Well, and so also then, are we, when we talk about seasoned firewood and charcoal, are we eliminating those pellet things that people have?
That you get used in smokers?
Yeah, but those are seasoned wood.
I would say, yeah, it's seasoned.
Seasoned firewood.
Well, that's what they want you to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe they are.
I think the best thing, as Marion said, is we can edit the neighboring municipalities' burn ordinance, because it's pretty simple, pretty direct. It defines open burning, it defines contained burning.
Great.
And I think there's a couple.
Does it have no trash in it?
It has no trash, no recyclables. It lists like things you can't burn,
Sure.
categories. So I think that may be the best thing, is to edit that to what Springettsbury may want to see, and then we'll let the board look at it.
Is it okay to use accelerants to get it started? Like lighter fluid?
I don't think it defines anything like that.
Don't want to take all the fun out of outside fires.
I know.
Okay. So we'll take another pass at this. Okay, other updates. Last time we spent quite a while on the emotional support animals. So what we had done before was, if something wasn't a pet, didn't meet the definition of a pet, you would need to get a letter from a licensed medical health professional saying that you needed an emotional support animal and why it couldn't be something that would typically be defined as a pet. And then they were allowed as a conditional use, under the conditional use process. After quite a bit of discussion, we decided maybe we didn't want to do that, and instead have updated the definition so that emotional support animals must meet the definition of pet animals. So we have a definition of pets that doesn't include things like livestock or wild animals or other things. It needs to be an actual pet. So then we removed emotional support animals from the conditional use process because they're pets. They're going to be a cat, a dog, a guinea pig, a rat, something that you would normally have in your house.
Some people might normally have.
So, questions or thoughts on direction for that?
What is there a list of pet animals?
There is a general list. I do think
That
that I
defined by
do
the
think that
state?
there is we actually included it a new definition of pet animal in the ordinance.
Yeah, we say it's a domesticated animal that is kept by humans for companionship and enjoyment rather than for economic reasons. And then we give examples of cats, dogs, fish, birds, ferrets, domesticated mice, rats, guinea pigs, hamsters, gerbils, snakes, and similar animals. Livestock and wild animals are not considered pets. So obviously that doesn't cover all animals in the animal kingdom, but hopefully it gets the ones that we'd want.
So it says birds in there. Does that mean you could have an emotional support chicken?
Chicken.
Because that, I believe we define, I'll have to check if that was considered livestock. We do talk about chickens elsewhere. Oh yeah, because then livestock we'd actually define right above it, and that includes poultry.
So you can have a bird that you wouldn't normally use as a food source.
Yes, that is the intent.
A domesticated bird. So
Yes.
Domesticated
No,
bird.
not-
What
crow.
is poultry?
chickens.
I believe
geese.
poultry or bird. We do not define poultry. I believe it is birds that you eat. Like these that would be the common definition. Yes, domesticated fowl valued for meat and eggs.
Say that again.
The dictionary.com definition, domesticated fowl, especially those valued for their meat and eggs, as chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, and guinea fowl.
Good.
All right. Data centers?
I'm sorry.
Move on to data centers?
Okay, great. So we clarified that data centers are standalone structures and uses and not to, differentiate them from IT spaces. So, that serve a building or a campus. And we used the York County Model Ordinance to define that. We were concerned about the potential interpretation of needing to regulate a company that had an IT center as data centers. So we were trying to clarify that. So, and then we had a proposal to have truck parking as a primary use in industrial districts, and that was industrial districts within a certain distance of 84 or US 30, and there didn't seem to be an appetite for that, so we took that out.
Any problems with that? Next.
Okay. You guys ready for signs? Ready as you're gonna be? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with the concept of electronic message centers, which is the fancy name that people are now using for the kind of sign with changeable messaging on them that changes electronically. So basically, they are signs that use an electronic means to change copy. They typically include incandescent lamps, LEDs, or LCDs to do that. They are not defined in our current ordinance. I would recommend that we define them. Right now, they're just changeable copy signs. So I would, I'd at least add a definition of these. Right now, changes of such signs are limited to 8 times per day. And if you change more frequently than 8 times per day, the sign is categorized as an animated sign, which is generally prohibited in the ordinance. So we looked at options for perhaps expanding the use of electronic message centers in the township. Why? Because there's business demand and reports of positive economic impacts by using these kinds of signs. Recent research has both provided more guidance on lighting levels and how to regulate those, and how the signs themselves can automatically adjust, as well as safety. How long, how fast a message changes creates a traffic problem or a safety problem. So current designs, like I sort of alluded to, are way better than previous technology, including automatic dimming to ambient lighting. So on a bright sunny day, it would have one level of light. On a cloud, as the clouds roll in, it would automatically dim. As the sun goes down, it would automatically dim to be, a relative light to, to what's happening out there. So there are also better tools for municipalities to use for enforcement of such signs. So, inexpensive and easy to use light meters where you can just go out and be, yep, that meets our standard. Nope, that doesn't meet our standard. So, we put together a draft proposal based on regulations and standards from Centennial, Colorado. So they're sort of the poster child in planning circles, and the International Sign Association, but the International Sign Association working with planning organizations and others to come up with a model that could hopefully meet the needs of people who want these kinds of signs, but also maintain quality of environment in communities that they're being used in. So, so the proposal for electronic messaging signs that is included in the draft ordinance today would permit them only in monument or marquee signs. So I think we're all pretty clear on what a monument sign is. A marquee is something like you would see, on a theater, where you have a really big sign talking about what the movies that are playing, or if it's a live theater, the shows that are coming, whatever those are. In terms of sign limits, not more than 50% of a monument sign or 75% of a marquee, and just cannot be combined with any other changeable copy signage. So the signs that you go out and stick the letters on. I don't think it would make that much sense, but just making that clear. Operational standards, static messages only. So no animations, no flashing, change no more frequently than every 15 seconds, and no transition or frame effects between the messages. So no one word fades out and another word comes in, or a word spins in or something. Just it's a 25% off, and then 15 seconds later, it could say something else that you wanted to advertise on that site. So the technology exists to program them to automatically dim according to ambient light conditions. So that is something that would be required under the draft language. And it also sets specific criteria for how you would measure whether a sign was in compliance with a light meter. So how far away you need to be, how you're positioned from the sign, off to the side, face on, and then the foot candle measurement between it being off and between it being absolutely solid, every diode is lit. So it's not, so that's the worst case, that's the worst case scenario. If every diode on the sign is lit, that's as bright as it's going to be. So those are the criteria for that. So, okay.
Back for a second. One more forward, I think. No, back.
Back?
Where's the monument?
Oh,
Okay,
I don't know
so
if it's-
you had talked about here that this might be like on the side of a movie theater showing what's coming next. Are you suggesting then that that's not a clip of a motion picture? Because
Right.
that would be a moving or flashing sign.
right, that would be a moving or flashing sign.
All right, I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, and is 15 seconds too short?
I would posit that 8 times a day is too long, but it's not my township.
I didn't say 8 times a day was appropriate, but.
There you go. See, that's why we're having a discussion.
I'd like to comment on that too. Just because you can change it every 15 seconds doesn't mean we ought to change it every 15 seconds. I personally like the 3 times in 24 hours. I think that's more preferred.
3 times in 24.
3 times in 24 hours, yeah. The way we currently have,
With 8 times every 24 hours.
yeah, not every 15 seconds.
Yeah, I
It
don't,
is very, very annoying driving down the road and seeing the thing keep changing in front of you.
I agree with that. I'm not sure what the appropriate time is, though. Is
What?
it
Playing devil's,
hours or minutes? I don't know.
I don't know what the right answer either, but playing devil's advocate, like if we have a sign here, which, I think would be a good idea. You could, if you drove on Mount Zion Road under the current ordinance 4 times or 5 times in a day and passed our frontage, good chance you're gonna see the same message each time you go by.
And
That's
good chance you
defeating-
won't.
That's defeating the purpose of, in my opinion, of having an electronic sign.
So I drive down the highway and it's every 15 seconds and I see one message and I'm through it. And I don't go back until the end of the day, other direction, it's going to be a different message anyway. So I'm seeing 2 in 24 hours.
Mary,
So-
do you know what the standard is for billboard signs on the highway? Is it 15 seconds? Because I know they change often.
It's actually quite a bit shorter than 15 seconds.
Is it really?
Yeah.
5 seconds or?
Yeah, and
The thing I'll add is the safety standard is 2 seconds. An FHWA study found, and this doesn't mean that this is the standard that people use, but that 2 seconds is the minimum that you would want for safety reasons. That anything above 2 seconds is considered not distracting from a safety perspective. Aesthetically, obviously, that's a different story.
Yeah, I don't know how you read a sign that's got more than a couple of words on it
Yeah.
in 2 seconds.
No. And I personally, when you're talking about in the township, I think a minute is more than enough. If you see it in a minute, you can read it. And then if you come back later on and it's changed in a minute, you see a different sign. You'll have more information. But I don't see 15 seconds as being necessary in a township.
Yeah,
Just me.
I don't know what the right number is in between. I think in the minutes range, I think maybe hours is too long. Seconds is too short.
okay.
But I don't have a good answer in between.
No, I don't either.
Don?
I agree 100% with the chair. Especially about the I don't know part.
Is there a particular bill? Is there one that you've seen in the area that like when you've driven by, like, oh, that seems like the appropriate that we could research what their standard is? Because, like, yeah, where it really comes down to your preferences at this point. We can obviously look at what other places use, but we could use guidance, I suppose, on if there's a good
Honestly,
place
I don't
that
think
you
I've
would want to
seen
model after.
I don't think I've seen a single one that I like.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that makes it tough then.
I know I haven't. Everything that I've seen is pretty much animated signs that are really annoying.
Yeah, animated absolutely has to be out.
Yeah.
You weren't planning on an
and
animated
just
sign, were you, Mark?
One little detail. The first time I read this, I imagined somebody creating like a back, like what's up on the screen there. Those trees, leaves rustling in the breeze, or something happening. I know we could ultimately say it was animated, but moving backgrounds are one of the things that I think we really want to make sure that they don't move in any way.
I agree. I think it's distracting. It grabs attention that they want, but you don't want a driver to be focusing on a sign when there's a car stopping in front of them.
Are there any in the township now?
And I guess when I first thought about this too, we don't want animation. I really thought that the justification for the movable signs
That exist in the
is
township.
more to make it something that a business owner can set and forget and not have to run out there with the little letters all the time and change it, but not necessarily something that we want to make it easy for them to get lots of different messages out there during the day. I don't know that distinction really helps us decide, but that's kind of where my brain went first.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Don.
I think the business case for it is not so much a individual business putting different messages, but say if you have a shopping center with 15 tenants in it, is that then you could advertise those 15 tenants a bit more equally. I think that, when we did the research into the best practices, that was the selling point for businesses. It basically allows them to cycle through and get the different businesses in more frequently.
Is that equal by the amount of square footage, the amount of money they pay for rent, or what's equal? And
We wouldn't regulate that. That would be, but it would give them a chance to, I guess, decide on their own, what the equal would be.
so having a headliner store in a mall with smaller stores that are half the size and then tiny stores that are a quarter the size, and having equal amounts of static sign space on there seems pretty equal to me. I don't know why electronic has to improve that.
Like if you were a small business in there, you could maybe pay your landlord some extra money to be, you've got a sale going on, and have that be something that gets advertised on that sign.
Well, they do it right now in the shopping center industry with a pylon sign. If you're like giant.
Which they can still do
supermarkets,
if
the
it-
top and the biggest
if we're
sign.
talking
Right, that's what I'm,
And they go down
minutes
and down and
instead of
down
hours.
to the smaller tenants, but
sorry, Don.
They could still do that if we're talking about limiting them to minutes instead of hours. They could still do that kind of change, but we don't have any malls anyway, do we?
I do have a comment about the timing wise, that the ordinance does say that 8 times per day, but it also says it can change up to every 5 minutes. So people are complaining now about the 5 minutes. So if you're thinking time wise to lessen it a little bit than that, but not, I think personally as the zoning officer and doing code enforcement that 15 seconds is too fast. But 5 minutes is definitely too long. So somewhere in between there, I think would be at least welcomed by the township, at least, my opinion.
Now that's interesting because I was always under the impression that the people who didn't like the 5 minutes didn't like it because they really wanted animated signs.
I surmise that that may be correct. I don't know in a consensus for that necessarily, but I do think that the comments that I've received over time has been that they wanted the township to be a little bit more progressive in allowing signage. They was thinking the township was being, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think I heard the word enough times to say we are archaic in our signage in the township. And that's not my opinion. That's the opinion that I heard from folks that have had issues with our sign regulation.
It's archaic if you want no regulation. It's not archaic if you decide that there are as many people in the township that don't like the signs flashing in your eyes. So which one is archaic? That I get to do whatever I want, go back to pre-government and whoever has the most money or carries the biggest stick or has the biggest catapult wins.
I'm just characterizing what I was.
I understand. I'm saying that we're not putting an ordinance in place to just satisfy a group of business owners that might want different rules for signs. We're putting it into place for the safety and protection of the public. So if they want animated signs that are distracting to drivers, I'm not in agreement. If they're open to some restrictions on how quickly you can change the signs and following the laws for brightness, however it's defined to be measured and things like that, and we get maybe a few complaints that some people don't like the signs changing, but most people don't complain, and businesses are happier because they get to do some things that are a little bit more modern and maybe easier to manage and change. I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to find the happy medium between it. And we're not going to please everybody all the time. So we're trying to find a happy medium in this whole thing. So if 5 minutes is too long, 15 seconds is definitely too short. I don't know.
Pick a number.
The good news is that is just one line that is easy. If the rest of the regulations are suitable, then it's easy enough to, for us to change that time. And if you even in the future want to go with, something more conservative for now, the 5 minutes, and then it seems that is too long, then it shouldn't be, we don't have to go through this whole process again just to update the time. That could be something quicker and easier based on what you find in real experience.
So what's the consensus here? Keep it with 5 for now, or, Rachel, you said that's what's in the ordinance currently?
So
no more than 5 minutes?
I think I got one, Randall. Angel gave me one. I think because electronic signs are not defined as far as enforcement, we regulate them under the same animated sign thing. So we were telling people they couldn't change them more often than 5 minutes, and they definitely couldn't have at least the animated features, which is how we kind of slid electronic signs in there. But yeah, a lot of residents would complain that the 5 minutes is too long. And I'm not sure.
Residents or businesses?
Well, businesses, I guess I consider them residents because some of them live here, but or have a business in the township. But are we also going to find a way to regulate which districts these are being placed in? Because I don't know. I think one of the reasons why we don't have one here is we don't allow signage in the open space district.
That's a good
That would
point.
still be an issue.
Well, and I started going down that road thinking limited to just commercially zoned properties. And then I thought, well, what about churches? And what about the township if we want to put up one?
Yeah.
Right, churches are limited to 16 square feet of signage, so,
But can they have an animated sign saying masses at X and
right.
Tuesdays it's Y and
Yeah, we've had
animated?
churches go through the zoning hearing board for that because it's not that they can't have the electronic sign per se, it's they want to exceed that square footage that electronic signs would typically have.
Yeah, trying to get an electronic message center into the 16 square feet would be a challenge.
An interesting point, though, that Rachel mentions, we limit the size of the sign to no more than 50% of a monument, but how big can the monument sign be?
Well, and that's regulated by the district. So commercial highway is where you're allowed the largest signs, mixed use is somewhat smaller. So we've regulated that already by district.
Okay.
Well, if 5 is too long and 15 seconds is too short, why don't we pencil in 3 minutes in the middle and talk about it next time?
Done.
My suggestion.
Right. Okay. Are we okay to move on? I mean, I think the rest of this is going to give you a much better tool for regulating this type of sign. So, okay. Now we're going to talk about, now we're going to talk about temporary signs. Okay. So current temporary sign regulations allow people to apply for a permit and have them up to 4 times a year for no more than 28 days. The way this is currently being enforced in the township is you can apply for one up to 4 times a year, and each permit is good for 28 days. So that means a total of temporary signage for 112 days of the year. So concerns that this isn't necessarily working, some concerns on the township side, some concerns on the business owner side. So some of the ideas that we've looked at, and we haven't written up any of these yet because we know that this is something that needs some discussion. Permit up to 8 temporary signs per year, giving people more flexibility of how often they're doing it for different events, but limiting it up to 14 days. So instead of a month, it's truly a temporary sign. It's just there for a couple of weeks, and then it's gone. So same number of days, still have to get a permit every time, but just some more flexibility. The other thing another thing that we could look at is right now the township doesn't allow outdoor sandwich board signs, so they are listed under prohibited signs. So they're listed as a mobile sign. So, especially a lot of smaller businesses, out on the sidewalk in front, they have little sandwich boards, advertising menu, coffee, whatever come in. So we could permit these as a type of sign, included in people's maximum signage amounts. We would need some design standards on what those could look like, and not blocking sidewalks and taking up parking spaces and all that good stuff. But it could be done. The other thing is window signs. They're currently, this falls sort of under temporary signs, but it's sort of another issue. They're currently defined in the ordinance, but not regulated. So we're looking at proposed changes that would exempt a limited amount of incidental signage, so like the stuff that just says what kind of credit cards you accept, your hours, that kind of thing, as window signs, but regulate all other types of window signs. So it would need to count towards the total sign area. So if you're already at your maximum with your other exterior signage, then you couldn't have any window signs. But if you were below what your maximum was, you could use some of that for window signs. So people could then, in terms of using that as a temporary sign, like this example on the bottom where they're talking about this burger they're having some special for, they could just put that sign up and then take it down. So it wouldn't require a specific permit, but it would provide a cost-effective way of advertising temporary sales and activities, and would still need to fit into the signage maximums.
So is there a
sorry.
problem that we're trying to solve with that right now? I mean, are there problems that are occurring that people are complaining about?
Well, two things. One is that we define these and then we don't regulate them. So people could be using them in ways we don't want to see them using them. So like covering up, like I worked in one community where an urgent care center covered all their windows in signs advertising the urgent care, and they're like, oh, no, we need to block the windows for HIPAA. Well, you don't have to block the windows for HIPAA with signs advertising your service. You just have to block the windows, which can be done with blinds. It can be done with a whole bunch of different ways. So it potentially puts the township at risk for people, abusing it. But it also, we could approach it in a way that okay, explicitly this is what you can do. And when people are coming to the township and saying, I need more ways to advertise temporary things that are going on in my business, well, here's an opportunity that you have is to do it as a part of your window signage. So it was a whole we noticed, and then in thinking of the temporary signs, it was a way of addressing a potential need there. So, and then I think this is the last one in temporary signs, but obviously electronic message signs are an option. The township does get a lot of pressure from businesses to have more ways to have signs or advertise temporary events. So, if we're more clear on what our electronic message signs regulations are, that can be done. So, they wouldn't need a special permit for each time they have a temporary event. Obviously, it has a much higher upfront cost for the businesses. I think that was it for temporary signage. So,
Marion, are you suggesting that the ordinance would state if you have an electronic messaging board, you would not be allowed to have a temporary?
No, it's just in terms of businesses coming in and saying, I want, what are my tools for advertising, temporary events? It would be something that you could, one of your options is this, because there are going to be people who come in and say, well, great, you'll let me have a temporary sign for 112 days a year. I have some kind of special running 365 days a year. So how else can I be advertising those specials? Well, a cost-effective way may be in, a window sign, if you're able to fit that within your signage maximum. A less cost-effective way, but a more permanent way, might be an electronic message center, just sort of in response to business owners asking what they can do.
So that electronic message center could be a TV in the window of a certain size that could
Nope.
have the specials for
Nope.
the day on it?
It would need to be the same kind of thing that we were just talking about. That couldn't change more than every 3 minutes if that's the number we choose. But like this example here for this university, it's probably July or August, and they're saying, "Hey, come register for the fall term." So that's not a message they want up all year round. It's a message they want up at a specific time of year.
What I'm saying is if you have that you say this isn't necessarily cost effective because it's a higher upfront cost. I mean, if you're allowed to put a certain amount of signage in the window, you could not rotate that, but have specials of the day up there once a day.
Exactly.
And you could do that fairly cost effectively. I mean, it's hundreds of dollars, not thousands or tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and just in terms of thinking about it at a staff level, just trying to think of, addressing those comments and those, those questions and criticisms that staff gets, thinking about this as a holistic package of ways, you can advertise your business in the township.
So Marion, I don't understand what it means when it says township loses some control over sign content. but
Oh,
retains control over
just
use.
meant, if you come in and apply, if you have to apply for a temporary sign permit every time, you're saying what's on that sign every time. Whereas,
Because sort of by definition, they can do whatever they want once
Yeah.
they have an electronic message
yeah,
in 3-minute increments.
in 3-minute increments.
Could you possibly have a annual fee for these electronic sign centers, and you wouldn't have to have a permit each time? The owner would pay an annual fee for having his window sign electronic.
That makes it a tax on that business, in my mind. You don't have to pay a fee to keep a sign up. Why would we charge a fee just because it's electronic? They're footing the bill to put it up.
Right.
Paying for the electricity.
They're paying for their electricity. If it's a permitted use, then, I think if Charlie Roush were sitting over at the end over here, he would tell me that you can't charge somebody for something that you don't put any time, effort, cost into to manage. Remember, he told us that we can't charge fees above and beyond what it actually costs us to do something.
Yep.
So I guess that's my mind on it. James would probably tell us the same thing.
What are your thoughts? Well, we definitely need to regulate window signs, but do you like the idea of people can have window signs and put stuff on them as long as it's within their sign maximum?
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem with that.
No.
Okay.
My biggest concern about that is whether we have an ability to enforce it.
Right. Yeah, you have to know that somebody has capacity in their sign maximum.
Well, that and, if we've got these time limit things and then we tell them that they can't have it and then they go to the district justice or whatever and get 30 days to, and so, whatever we said doesn't really matter much.
Well, the idea with the window sign is if it was within your sign maximum, you could have them as long as you want. You could have it all year round if you wanted, and it could be the same sign, or you could be changing it every week depending on what was going on.
I think what Don's
Yeah, I
saying
guess
is
I
that
was
enforcement
going
of all
back a
this,
slide or two to the temp.
enforcement
Yes.
becomes very, very difficult.
Yes, which it gets into.
Which kind of gets us to, how do we enforce this stuff?
Yep.
Usually we're not running around in a golf cart checking every store out to see what they're doing. It's when somebody complains.
Right.
We do catch some things that shouldn't happen,
Right.
but
And I think also what Don was pointing out, till someone puts that particular sign and they're in violation, until we know about it, issue the violation, and it goes to the magistrate because they don't do anything, they've had that advertisement for 60 days or whatever the amount is. So they've met their purpose of not getting the permit or.
sure. And then they take it down and do it again. And by the time it goes through the whole process, again, it's another 60 days. So they get to do it probably, I don't know, like
Six times
six times a year
Yeah.
without any penalty or minimal. And as we found out from one greenhouse operator, that a $500 fine for a lucrative weekend is a price worth paying.
Not much of yeah. It's the price of a permit.
So,
Yeah.
right.
I guess to that point, we talked about allowing temporary signs more frequently, but for a shorter period of time. Is that opening us up to a harder enforcement challenge, or are the people who are violating now not even getting a permit?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people who are violating it don't bother getting permits. They just do what they want to do and expect not to get caught.
Right.
And then there are those that don't really care and pay the fee or whatever.
Yeah.
And the people that only put stuff out on the weekends. I mean, there's no enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay, so any thoughts on whether you want to change the frequency or duration that people could apply for temporary signs?
So temporary signs, would that sandwich board be a temporary sign?
Right now, it's a prohibited sign.
Prohibited.
Right now, it's defined as a mobile sign and it's prohibited. So I guess that's the other question. That's the other question I have is do we want to allow sandwich boards? If so, are they a temporary sign, or is it something that's a part of your permanent?
I will
Signage.
note that as far as enforcement, that sandwich signs are temporary signs. We don't call them mobile signs. At least that's not how I was taught, I guess, to enforce it. That a restaurant sticks out a sign, it's still a temporary sign, and they have to get a permit for it.
So if a restaurant takes a pedestal display out there that has the menu on it, is that considered a temporary sign?
No, I don't. Not if it's a menu, because that's part of the. I guess that would be more of the incidental signage. But if it's like advertising a lunch special or something like that, then it's temporary signage.
So if they advertise one item, it's temporary signage. If they advertise multiple items, it's not.
Yeah, I guess if it's advertising the whole menu, then it's. I guess I've never actually had someone post a whole menu out in their signage. So
I see that very often in restaurants. Maybe not so much in York, but in a lot of cities, when they're open for business, they have something outside that has the menu standing on it. Some of them have placards mounted right on the wall that they put the menu in, but that happens quite frequently. And I don't want to discourage a restaurant from, I always stop there and take a look at what they have to offer before I walk in.
Exactly.
I think that the way that you're describing that is, I know recently when I was looking at some of the definitions, that there is a permanent banner type section where like one of the car lots wanted to have a banner on the light pole. That's not changing. The sign is the same thing. So they had to apply for the permanent sign application. And I think kind of like the menu board situation would be something like that. They're going to be using the same signage every day, and that's what they're going to keep out there all year.
But if they
Not
put
change
it out there during business hours, is that considered permanent? Let's say they're open from noon until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, and they only put it out when they open the doors at noon and they take it in at 9 o'clock at night. That would be
Yeah.
a temporary sign.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on how it's mounted or something. If it's something they're just pulling out like that, yeah.
a sandwich board, I mean, oftentimes you walk around quaint little places that have sandwich shops, and they put a sandwich board out every single day with what they have on the menu that day.
What the specials are, chalkboards.
I mean, I know I don't want to take away a small business's ability to differentiate themselves, but at the same time, I understand that we're trying to not create a nuisance or a hazard.
Right.
So if you have something sitting out in the sidewalk that somebody's going to run into, trip over, whatever, impede traffic or pedestrian flow is one thing, but having something next to the building that you can see as you're walking up to a door to go into a place, I mean, how tightly do we want to regulate that?
Right.
I don't want to look like Scrooge, but I also don't want causing problems for our residents when they're walking about town.
Right. They need to be able to be maintaining ADA access and all of that.
Yeah, when I look at this picture of this board, I can't see any problem with that in front of a lot of the shopping centers
Right.
around here that have 8 or 10 foot sidewalks in front, and it's not going to get in the way. I don't know how we describe that. And if we're talking about something like you say, that they put out when they open and they take it back in when they're done.
So
And
then
it might
you walk.
even make us look quaint then.
I don't have any problem with this. Now I go downtown York, and they've got outdoor seating outside the restaurants in the sidewalk area, and you gotta either walk through the tables or walk out into the street to get around it. I have more of a problem with that than I do with this.
Right.
I don't have a problem with sandwich boards either. Seems to me that's a part of business.
Okay, we'll work on drafting up some regulations that will include design standards and will include placement standards. And honestly, tying it to access and the Americans with Disabilities Act is the way to go. So if you don't have a wide enough sidewalk in front of your business to put something like that down, then maybe you need a flat board or something.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll work on something for that. Okay, I'm going to come back to the frequency of the temporary signs. Do we have it?
We said 3 minutes.
We said 3 months. Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Well, right-
temporary, I thought you were talking about the.
Yeah. Right now it's 4 times a year for no more than 28 days, and one proposal was to make it more frequent, but for shorter time periods, 8 times, but for 14 days. But I don't know with some of the enforcement things we've
I've
talked
got
about.
this sandwich board stuck in my head
I
when
know,
we've got
'cause-
temporary signs up there, so I'm,
Because that's the picture I used, sorry. I should use 2 pics.
so,
Marion, could you go back one screen?
yeah, please.
'Cause I think permitted 4 times a day for no more than 28 days. I thought today that was the way the code read. It was 7 days.
How do you get
4
one of
times
these
a year,
permits?
total of 28 days in a year.
That's not how it's being interpreted and enforced right now. So
it's
that's,
not.
yeah, that's
Okay.
why it's described that way.
I thought that was the way
Currently,
it
I
read.
guess somehow down the line, it got interpreted that it's 4 times a year, but 28 days at a time. So you could have it basically 4 months of the year.
So, somebody left 28 days total off of that
Oh,
description.
it's there. It's just not, that's just not how it's traditionally been enforced.
And I will tell you, it's
Okay, so what's the right answer, and how do you write it so that the general layperson would understand it to be the proper number of days per incident?
I think it's written fairly well that way right now. We could write another sentence reinforcing that. But yeah, and if that's what
Because
Looking for
the
some
way it's
direction.
written right now is I could see it either way.
Right, but that's paraphrasing.
Okay,
That's paraphrasing, and I was trying to describe how it's being enforced today. So the language itself says no more than four days a year and a total of no more than 28 days a year. And I'm paraphrasing there again, but it's,
okay. So,
4 weeks of signage versus 4 months of signage. Temporary signage.
let's go back one more slide. Oh, that
Sorry.
doesn't help.
All temporary.
Oops, I keep going the wrong way. Sorry about that.
Okay, what's a good example of a temporary sign?
Oh, like banners that people put up. When we get to sign definitions, we'll see a feather sign. That's a kind of temporary sign. What are some of the other things you're getting applications for?
Well, like the yard sale type signs that stick in the ground. Those are the ones that most commonly are applied for. Or the feathered flags, yeah. Banners, not so much, but
I actually think the 8 times a year, 14 days is better than 28 days. You don't need 28 days to advertise a yard sale,
Oh, yard sales are a totally different process. So it's a
Sorry.
yard sale style sign. So yeah,
Temporary sign.
yeah. Yard sales is our next topic.
I don't know. Just my personal opinion.
What did you recommend on the next slide?
Well, this was just a discussion we had at a staff meeting that perhaps 4 times a year, with the applications and interests from businesses, that something more than 4 times a year might be wanted, but that if it were permitted more frequently, that we would need to reduce the number of days, so that we absolutely would not want to increase the number of days. Because we're already looking at temporary signs that are out there for 4 months out of the year.
Back
So-
to Don's comment earlier about enforcement, if it takes 30 days or 28 or 30 days before it goes to the magistrate and another 28 or 30 days, reducing it to 14 days does nothing.
Doesn't do anything. And now you've just created 8 opportunities for somebody who's starting right.
And do you have any idea of what our neighboring municipalities are doing for temporary signs?
I do not. Ted, from when you were working on the sign regulations, do you remember that?
I do not recall offhand, but we can certainly look at it. Especially, is there one that you like what they're doing, or just curious to know what they're doing?
More curious.
Okay, yeah, we can look into
I mean,
that.
what's enforceable? And, I mean, we've talked about this before, and I told you that my sons, when they were first starting out in real estate, put a real estate sign up on a telephone pole in West York, and they ended up getting fined a whole boatload of money very quickly. And, it was like every single day it's up there, we're giving you another fine, and they didn't have it up there for very long at all, maybe even less than a week. And they ended up going before the magistrate, and it was like a per day charge, quite a large amount of money, really quickly. Ours don't carry any of that kind of teeth. is what they did legal? The magistrate obviously agreed with West York Borough. Why can't we do that?
I don't know why, or if we can or cannot. I would have to ask James what we're allowed.
I mean, they found out very quickly that that's not a good idea.
Right.
And didn't do it again.
They didn't do it again.
I know in one of the code enforcement classes that I attended, there are some townships that allow their code enforcement officers to ticket, like sight on scene for certain things. I don't know what legally goes into that at all, but I think if someone did receive a fine pretty quickly for certain ordinance offenses, they would not continue breaking that ordinance, but I'm not sure how that gets regulated at all.
Our ordinance currently allows $500, and that's a daily fine, and that's the maximum, and that's per the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, and that was brought to the attention of the Court of Common Pleas judge as well as from the district magistrate with Uters as an example. So that was the maximum amount that we could ask for a fine for that particular situation.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about that situation in particular. I'm talking about if we, for instance, banned the feather signs and somebody had one out there and, you know, the way we do it right now is we give them a notice, then we wait 30 days, it goes to magistrate, it could be a while before it gets, you know, whatever, and by the time it gets scheduled, it costs them $500 for 60 days of advertising.
That would be true.
So if it was every single day it was out there, that would change the amount of the fine pretty dramatically.
Correct.
And prevent some things from happening that might otherwise just continue because it's just the cost of doing business.
I think, too, a lot of times we can say we'll charge them that much, but the magistrate does not.
Well, is that because our ordinance doesn't say per day?
It does say per day, but we have very little success getting to the magistrate. He wants to send it back and say that there's something wrong with it. We've tried several times, but he's not very cooperative with getting.
When's his term up?
I think next year. We looked. Yeah, but yeah, we
Get
send
the guy from West York in.
we send courtesy notices or red tags, and then usually we give them up to like 3 chances to resolve the issue, and then it goes to the magistrate. And if we're even able to get it to the judge, then we don't know if it's going to be sent back. So it's just a very long process. We threaten them with these fines, I guess, and half time it doesn't actually get there.
It's not helpful when we're trying to enforce an ordinance that is proper and have a fight with people who should be supporting our ordinances that are duly put in place by an elected body.
Agreed. Solicitors frustrated. So.
I hear that. Back to temporary signs.
But I will look at West York's ordinances too and see if they're if they have anything in their language that might expedite the enforcement process.
Any thoughts, gentlemen?
My understanding that telephone poles are different than a lot of things too. That's the example in West York. They don't like anything there.
And that becomes an off-premises sign and all of that too. So regulated like a billboard, even though it's small. I'm not hearing a lot of appetite for increasing the number of time, at least in our ordinance, setting
I guess
aside the,
I don't understand
enforcement
enough
issues.
about how that's going to impact what we're doing here
yeah.
to have an opinion one way or the other. I hate doing things just to do them. So I guess if I understood that a lot of businesses are asking for more times per year at a shorter duration for each time, I might have an appetite to do that, but if we're just changing it because we want to change it, I don't see the need.
Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
rather understand more about enforcement for what we have already for that than, because right now I don't think what we do is effective, and I think it's a free-for-all, and changing it to more times, less amount per,
It's not going to affect that.
isn't going to change anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it makes sense for us to step back a little bit and figure out how do we make this workable for the good guys and horrible for the people
Exactly.
who don't want to follow it.
Very, very well put, Don. Thank you.
Okay, we will go back and look at enforcement and a little more closely at what some of the neighbors are doing. Okay, I think that was everything. In temporary, okay, yard sale signs. So yard sale signs are regulated in two different areas. They're regulated in zoning, and they're regulated under Section 160 of the Code of Ordinances, which regulates how you have a yard sale. So Section 160 lets you have up to 2 quote-unquote off-premises signs, so attaching something to a telephone pole or other to direct people to your yard sale. And then it must be removed within 24 hours of the end of the sale. The zoning ordinance permits one on-site sign as an exempt sign, so you don't have to apply for a permit or anything. You can just go out and put up a yard sale sign with a maximum area of 2 square feet and a height of 6 feet. So nothing in either regulation says when you can put up that sign, just that it has to come down within 24 hours of the ordinance. So we'd recommend some kind of statement of how long before the ordinance a sign can be posted. And we were just talking about 7 days. And then I think it's okay to have regulations in both places. But I think that we need to add language about which ordinance takes precedent if there's a conflict.
And here, where we're talking about yard sale signs, we're talking about signs for yard sales, and we're not talking about that variety of signs that, you stick on the lawn just like a yard
Right.
sale sign, right?
Right. This is actually
specifically for a yard sale.
yard sale. I'm having a yard sale. All my neighbors and I on a block are having a yard sale. Yes, this is actually yard sale.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. Any disagreement there?
Anybody else?
Hello, this is Charles joining in. I found the sign conversation very fascinating. I did want to just get some clarity with regard to yard sale signs or any sign. Are we permitting them to be on telephone poles? I just was trying to get that clarified.
No. Currently, no signs are allowed on utility poles, traffic signs. They're not permitted at all. Doesn't matter what kind of sign it is.
All right, I'd just like to make sure we keep that. All right.
Yep, we're not changing that.
I think, unless it's for Mark Swamley's kids.
even then, I don't think we need to make
Didn't even know about it until I had to pay for it.
Oh, God.
I thought it would be a good revenue source for us.
They heard that in some one real estate group or something, thought it was a great idea, so they went out and tried it and found out.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so now we've got, we're down to sign definitions, guys. This is it. So hopefully, I think most of this is.
Get out of here
is
before
fairly-
8 o'clock.
Yes, that's
All
my,
right.
that's my goal, for you all to get out of here before 8 o'clock. Okay, so awning signs, right now, it lacked a definition of what type of sign it was, so we're defining them as attached signs because there's specific regulation about how you size, what you can do with an attached sign, so now we'll know that that's the regulation that those are subject to, and then we're deleting the definition of canopy sign because it's basically the same thing, so
So
let's
what
not confuse it.
is a canopy at a gas station that is not attached to the building?
That is a different kind of canopy, isn't it?
It's not attached.
It's not attached to, right, it's not an attached sign.
So what would it be?
I don't know off the top of my head. Ted, do you have thoughts on
I
that?
am trying. Yeah, I'm
You trying to
trying
look
to look
that
at. So you were saying like the canopy that is like the cut part that actually where you're filling the gas.
The big cover
tank,
over the
part that's above
over
you,
the
that's
top,
like 30,
if it-
20, 30 feet tall.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we didn't think about that because I guess there is. Yeah, the gas station name is up there, so it is a sign.
It can be, not always, but
Yeah. Yeah. So the old canopy sign was defined as that sign that is attached part of an awning. So the definition we're deleting wouldn't have defined that either. It wouldn't have been applicable to that. There are like 50 sign types in here, so I'm trying to scroll through it quickly to see which one might apply. But yeah, nothing comes to mind offhand.
with the 25 minutes left, that means one every 30 seconds to go through them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will look more closely at how those are being regulated in other places. And I know that there are standards, so we just have to pull
Yeah.
them in. Okay,
I would say it's a general business identification sign, which is, because it directs attention to business, although that also encompasses a bunch of other type of signs, but in general, it'd be business
Make sure
identification,
that-
I think.
I want to make sure that if this ends up going a legal route, that the people that matter also define it that way.
yeah, exactly.
Well, yes, that's important.
Exactly. Okay, so that's important. We'll need to make sure we're
Okay.
covered there. Building markers. So like if you have a historic building or something else, we just added that to the list of exempt signs. So and defining it as, historic marker kind of thing. Changeable copy signs. We've updated this to specify that a changeable copy sign is something that where the letters are changed manually because that's different. Right now, our electronic signs are also regulated under changeable copies, so just pulling those apart. Development signs. We've added this as a new subsection, regulated under exempt signs, which is how our real estate signs are currently regulated. But like the real estate signs, requiring them to be removed within 30 days of receipt of the final certificate of occupancy. So you can't just leave that up as, advertising your space once you're fully rented, and the same maximums that we have for real
Wait,
estate
fully
signs.
rented. So if I have an apartment building that I built and there's one unit left that isn't rented,
That's different.
okay?
So
I'm just trying to think of how people are
Yeah.
going to try to
but you
get around it,
you don't get a certificate of occupancy
unit by unit.
unit by unit.
Okay. So within 30 days of C of O for the development, regardless of whether or not it's rented.
Regardless of whether it's rented. So you're complete. Your construction is done and it's available to be rented, or it is, you've attracted your, in a case of a one-use commercial structure, you've attracted your tenant and you've done what you needed to do. So if you had, say, a shopping center or an apartment building, you could still have a real estate sign out there advertising space available,
But not a development sign.
but not a development sign. Okay, I'm going to keep going. The feather signs, we've defined them. Right now, we've added them as a type of temporary sign. They are not specifically prohibited at this point, but if it's something that we do prohibit, like those big, I don't, what do you say, like the guys that dance.
Those are inflatable.
Inflatables, yeah. But we don't specifically prohibit feather signs right now. We hadn't even
Are
defined
feather
them.
signs around town that are faded from 10 or 15 years of use.
Right.
How are we planning on regulating them?
As a type of temporary sign.
So that would be the 4 times a year up to, what was the total? It
I know.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Those particular type of signs seem to have more of a permanency, whether it's here in Springettsbury or anywhere else. They're used all the time out there in central Pennsylvania, that's for darn sure. Now, again, the amount of frequency we want to allow them to be is, I think, is the question. And in talking about the days for a temporary sign, but I just know that they are frequently located here and elsewhere. So are we looking at them as a temporary sign, or are we ultimately looking at it as more permanency because they do advertise, or they might be changed out some, but they're used frequently and for longer periods of time, it appears.
I don't want to regulate them based on how they're using them. I want to regulate them on how we want to see them. Or not at all.
Can the
I
feather
think we have-
signs be,
we allow-
can the feather signs be, sized, designated for the maximum size? Some of them are enormous.
I think we have an opportunity to do whatever we need to do here. Don, you were going to say?
I think we need to regulate these a lot.
I
in the
agree.
township.
I find these almost more distracting than the electronic signs.
Yeah. I mean, if you have them as a temporary sign and somebody's got it longer,
And then
Then
we
they're
get back
allowed.
into the same problem of going to the magistrate.
If the board doesn't,
Can we define them as trash and then just pick them up and bring them to the office?
I mean, there are a number of sign types that are just listed as prohibited signs. So if, like the animated signs, you had revolving signs, roof signs. So if that is your desire to just prohibit them, we can just, take out the word temporary from the definition and list them under prohibited signs and be done with it.
Prohibited, and Public Works can pick them up and throw them in a dump truck at their leisure.
Sure. I mean, maybe it makes a difference where they are, but, at the entrance to a shopping center, it's not even associated with a specific store. It's completely separate. Or when somebody just puts, 6 of them in front of their building, that all seems to be a nuisance to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're better off just prohibiting them if that's the way you want to go. Feather signs.
I haven't
are
seen
not
a
allowed.
single one that I think is valuable.
Yeah, well, it's just a cheap way of advertising.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that. Okay, flashing sign, it's a type of prohibited sign, and we'll change the definition to specify changes more frequent than every 3 minutes are flashing signs, so that it aligns with what we've got in animated signs. Incidental signs, here's where we want to talk about menus. So, right now, the maximum sign size for an incidental size is 2 square feet. I think we need to have a definition for menu signs, and if we want to keep them as incidental signage, they need to be as big as probably 12 square feet to be consistent with what fast food menus typically are. The other thing that we could do is we could say, hey, you know, if you're going to have a menu this big, it's going to count in your total signage allotment. But, you know, with the amount of business that is being done through drive-throughs and people sitting in their car and needing to be able to actually read the menu, theoretically, they don't know what they're getting when they get there. You know, that they don't fit into that two square feet.
I also wouldn't want it to take away from the signage for the name of the building, though.
Right.
Yeah,
Are-
I agree.
is
These
there a
are
problem we're trying to
generally
solve here?
internal, not a problem.
Say again, Don?
They're generally really internal to the property, and I don't see
Right.
them as a big problem.
Yeah,
Especially in this example.
I don't recall ever seeing one from the road. I see it where I want to see it when I'm trying to order my food, and
Usually in the drive-through lane.
yeah, in the drive-through lane, it's usually focused at the car that is pulled up
That is
to
pulled up
make
to.
the order.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're solving a problem.
Yeah. I'd like to add a definition for a menu sign, include that in the list of incidental signage, and allow a menu sign to be larger than other kinds of incidental signage.
So we do that, we need to define where and why they're used, because I could just see that
Yeah.
little store on the street sticks a 12 square foot sign in the window that has the bright lights with all of their menu items
Right.
on it. And we were just talking about those little stands and thinking that was a bad idea.
Right.
So,
Right.
And we don't want some lawyer having a 12 by 12 menu sign of his services.
Right.
I've only ever seen them in drive-through lines. Could you restrict them to drive-through lines of a restaurant?
Yeah. Internally oriented drive-through.
yeah, it's just, are we opening ourselves to more problems by defining this than we're seeing with
Just
what we got right now?
Well, right now, if you've got a menu sign that's larger than 2 square feet, you're technically in violation of our sign ordinance today. So I think we need to address it. And I certainly don't want to say that all incidental signs can be as large as 12 square feet. Because incidental signage is meant to be like, you know, enter, exit, directional kinds of things and other like basic information that people need.
So we're not saying that incidental to is, I've seen at like Wendy's or something, they'll put a yard type sign like right in front of the menu board advertising their new milkshake or something. That, as far as, I guess it's been interpreted as temporary, not incidental, correct?
I would call that temporary.
Okay.
It certainly doesn't meet the materials requirements
Right.
for permanent signage.
I guess if it's defined appropriately, to be able to get a drive-through sign of a larger size, but do we want to, I don't know. It just seems like we're opening up a can of worms that we don't need to.
Okay.
I mean, if we want to we're saying that an incidental sign can only be 2 square feet?
That's what the ordinance currently,
So a menu is an incidental sign?
the menu signs are incidental today.
Yeah, it specifically lists drive-through window menu boards in the list of examples of types of incidental signs, which is why we flagged this to begin with.
So can we just limit it to drive-through menu boards?
Yeah.
Does it have to be the type of drive-through? Do you have a menu board at CVS on a drive-through? Do you have some type of signage at a bank when you're coming up to a drive-through? I mean, who could misuse this? That's what I'm trying to think.
Right.
What drive-throughs do we have that could potentially, and these guys have all heard me say this before, unintended consequences.
Yep.
We define this to be 12 square
Yeah.
feet, and somebody says, wow, I got 12 square feet of signage now that I could use that I couldn't before. 2 feet wouldn't have been enough, but now this is worth taking a look at.
Right.
So,
Banks, Jiffy Lubes, car dealers,
yeah,
all kinds of stuff.
I mean, I could see the drive up service for an oil change. I could see, just all kinds of things. Oh, imagine the what's that weed shop out there that the dispensaries
board,
have
yes.
drive-through. Yeah, we're gonna
Could you limit
beer.
it? Could you limit it to food?
Food menu
Fast,
boards.
fast, like a restaurant
Yeah.
drive-through. Because I think that pretty much is the intent, is a restaurant drive-through. And then everything that's not would fall
Would
under the
Under the
Would
other
fall under
temporary
incidental.
or
2
under the
square
other
feet for the
yeah,
incidental.
incidentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because all the other examples under incidental signs are much smaller things. It's, stickers on gas pumps, vending machines, signs on ATMs, newspaper delivery boxes. So this already didn't really fit with a incidental sign definition, other than the fact that it was specifically listed
Okay.
there.
So if we can identify this specifically as fast food or as restaurant drive-throughs.
Yeah. Okay, I like
Okay.
that. Okay, an incidental window sign, we talked about that under window signs already, that this wouldn't count towards your signage total.
Yep.
And that was it.
All right.
So I moved the next step slide to the end. We're still at number 1 in the board workshops. We're scheduled for another one on the 4th of next month. I guess I want to check in. I mean, obviously, we discussed some things that we probably need to review. I don't think that we will have actual draft language by the 4th, because that's not very long from now. That's like 2 weeks from now, basically. But I think that we could have ideas for how we would approach
Do we
some
wanna
of the
move that
stickier
out?
issues.
If the board wishes, we could get more dates from Marion of maybe,
Would you prefer more time than to come back?
I think we could have something, obviously the goal is to get us to a point where we can go to adoption. So I think the more solid information we can get you is going to provide a higher level of comfort.
I agree.
I was like so excited to get all these on the calendar, and then I was like, okay, it took us a month to get, and like we needed that time.
Yeah.
And now I think we need that time again to come up with solid proposals.
How much time do you think you need?
Can we do it like about another month again? Just,
So-
it gives us time to, review things, come up with proposals, meet with staff, and then meet with this group again.
so like late June,
Like
Late
late June.
June.
early July type
Yeah,
of.
either
Yeah.
one is good for me.
So I'll send a email to the board, just get your availability or for that time frame.
Yeah, okay,
Sounds good.
cool. 6 minutes to spare. But one more of these.
All right, I do have to open it up for public comment, so Charlie can make more comments. You're the only public here tonight, right? Or is there anybody online that would like to comment on any of what we've discussed tonight? Please click the raise hand button on Zoom to be recognized.
No one there.
Nobody there. Oh, I saw panelist 5. Okay. That takes us to the end of our meeting agenda this evening, so meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.